Hello! So you've just started Final Fantasy XIV, you've created your Warrior of Light, and now you're stuck on picking a job. You saw how people were trying to imitate Naruto, and you think to yourself, I want to do that. So you became a ninja. Ninja is a really cool melee DPS that uses daggers. This job has some really flashy abilities, and has some complexity to it. It did get some interesting changes since Dawntrail's release as well, so let's take a look. Let's start with your main combo, which is Spinning Edge into Gust Slash, then into Aeolian Edge, which has a rear positional. At level 54, after Gust Slash, you have the option to use Armor Crush, which has a flank positional and will give you 2 stacks of Kazumatoi. This will increase the potency of your next Aeolian Edge by 100. You can hold up to a maximum of 5 Kazumatoi. You're going to want to have some Kazumatoi at all times, so every Aeolian Edge is buffed when you use it. So if you run out, make sure to use Armor Crush to get some more, but be careful not to overcap. Your AoE combo will consist of Death Blossom into Hake Mujin Satsu. You also have a ranged weapon skill, which is Throwing Dagger. At level 30, you will unlock Ninjitsu, and 10, your first Mudra, that you have 2 charges of. Pressing 10 once will change Ninjitsu to Fuma Shuriken, which is a single target attack. At level 35, you'll unlock Chi, your second Mudra. Pressing 10, then Chi will change Ninjitsu to Raiton, which is a strong single target attack. Pressing Chi, then 10 will change Ninjitsu to Katon, which is a strong AoE attack. At level 45, you'll unlock Jin, your last Mudra. Using either 10 or Chi, and then Jin will change Ninjitsu to Hyoton, which is a single target attack that will bind an enemy in its place for 15 seconds. This does not affect most bosses. With 3 Mudras, pressing any combination of all 3 of them will yield different ninjitsus as well. Pressing both Chi and Jin, and then 10 will change Ninjitsu to Huton, which is an AoE attack. Pressing both 10 and Jin, and then Chi will change Ninjitsu to Doton, which will place an AoE on the ground that damages any enemy inside of it over the course of 18 seconds. It also applies a heavy debuff to any enemy inside of Doton as well. At level 86, with Doton active, using either the second part of your AoE combo or Katon will make Doton pulse with an attack called Hollow Nozuchi. Pressing both 10 and Chi, then Jin will change Ninjitsu to Suiton, which is a single target attack. All of these Mudra combinations may seem confusing and hard to remember, but you only need to remember the end of the Mudra. Ending a Mudra with 10 will always yield either Katon or Huton. Ending with Chi will always yield Raiton or Doton. Ending with Jin will always yield Hyoton or Suiton. Both Suiton and Huton will give you 20 seconds of Shadow Walker, which will allow you to use Trick Attack, which has a rear positional and increases your damage dealt to that target by 10% for 15 seconds. At level 92, Trick Attack will upgrade to Kunai's Bane, which is a strong AoE attack that also increases your damage dealt to any target that was hit by it by 10% for 15 seconds. Kunai's does not have a rear positional, unlike Trick Attack. With your Ninjitsu, you primarily want to use Suiton at the start of any encounter in order to gain Shadow Walker for either Trick Attack or Kunai's. From there on, you can use your Mudras for Raiton and single targets, and Katon for AoE. Just make sure to use Suiton or Huton to gain Shadow Walker at least 20 seconds before Trick Attack or Kunai's comes off cooldown. At level 50, you can use Kasatsu, which will allow your next Mudra sequence to be used without consuming a charge. It'll also increase the damage of the Ninjitsu by 30%. This should primarily be used on Raiton in single targets or Katon for AoE. At level 76, however, using Kasatsu will also change both Hyoton and Katon to much stronger ninjitsus. Hyoton will change into Hyoshoran Ryu, which is an extremely strong single target attack. Katon will change into Goka Makyaku, which is a very strong AoE attack. Kasatsu should now be used for Hyosho on single targets and Goka for AoE. You should prioritize using Raiton, Suiton, and Hyosho for single targets, Katon, Goka, Doton, and Huton for AoE. Hyoton without Kasatsu isn't really used that much besides some very niche situations, so you shouldn't press it unless you have Kasatsu up. If you mispress any Mudra sequence, your Ninjitsu will summon a bunny on your head. This will let everyone know you failed your Ninjitsu, so be careful to not do that. At level 10, you'll learn Hide, which when used will make you invisible to most enemies, but not to bosses. It'll also reset your Mudra cooldowns entirely. Hide can only be used outside of combat, and was really important in Endwalker, but now it doesn't really have a use besides resetting your Mudras before mob pulls or dungeon bosses. At level 70, you'll learn Chi Jin, which will convert each mudra into ninjitsu, and as you press each one, it'll change into different ninjitsus based on the order you press them. The easiest way to know how TCJ works is that you're trying to do a mudra sequence using all 3 mudras, and as you press the buttons to get there, you do the different ninjitsus associated with them. So for example, if I want to use Suiton, I can press 10 for Fuma Shuriken, Chi for Raiton, and then Jin for Suiton. This is the way you want to go for single targets. For AoE, you can end with either Huton or Doton. Using Doton as an example, I can use Jin for Fuma Shuriken, 10 for Katon, and then Chi for Doton. TCJ used to end upon moving, but now you can use it and move around freely. At level 100, after using TCJ, it'll change to Tenri Jindo, which is an insanely strong AoE attack. At level 90, when you use Raiton, it'll give you a Raiju stack. You can hold up to 3 Raiju stacks, and they will allow you to use either Fleeting Raiju, a strong single target weapon skill, or Forked Raiju, another strong single target weapon skill that's also a gap closer to your target. Both Forked and Fleeting Raiju share the same damage, so you should only really use Forked when you need to gap close back to your target, and use Fleeting pretty much all the time. It's important to note though that if you press any other weapon skill besides your range weapon skill, you will lose your Raiju stacks. You're free to use mudras or other abilities with Raiju stacks active. Before we go on, if you're enjoying the video, I highly suggest you subscribe and leave a like as well, as it really helps me out. If you want to support me even more, please consider becoming a member. My lowest tier is only $1 a month, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you want to watch any of my complete Final Fantasy XIV videos completely ad-free, I suggest taking a look at my Patreon, which is now only $1 a month as well. Thanks so much for your support. At level 62, you'll unlock Ninki. Every weapon skill you use will increase your Ninki by 5, and when you hit 50 Ninki, you can use Hellfrog Medium, an AoE attack, or Bava Kakra, a single target attack at level 68. At levels 78 and 84, Aeolian Edge and Armor Crush will instead give 10 Ninki and then 15 Ninki respectively. At level 15, you'll learn Mug, which is a single target attack that will increase your target's damage taken by 5% for 20 seconds. At level 66, Mug will upgrade to Dokumori, which is a cone AoE attack that does the same thing, except that it applies to all enemies hit by Dokumori. Dokumori will also give you 40 Ninki as well, and at level 96, will give you Higi for 30 seconds. Higi will change Bava Kakra to Zesho Meppo, which is a really strong single target attack. Higi will also change Hellfrog Medium to Death Frog Medium, a strong AoE attack. At level 80, and with 50 Ninki, you can use Bunshin, which will give you 5 stacks of the same name for 30 seconds. Each weapon skill you use, including Raiju, will be repeated by your clone. It also gives you 5 Ninki per weapon skill. At level 82, after using Bunshin, it'll change the Phantom Kame Itachi. This will send your clone to do a strong AoE attack and give you 10 Ninki. Phantom Kama will also proc Howlo Nozuchi if you have Doton active. At level 72, after using either Suiton or Huton, you can use Meisui, which will use up Shadow Walker to give you 50 Ninki. It'll also buff your next Bava Kakra or Zesho Meppo at level 88. Shade Shift will give you a personal shield that lasts for 20 seconds. Shikuchi will allow you to move to your cursor. You'll get a second charge of Shikuchi at level 74. At level 64, after using either Raiton, Katon, or Hyoton, it'll reset a charge of Shikuchi. Assassinate is a single target attack that'll make you teleport on top of the enemy and stab them in the neck. At level 56, Assassinate will upgrade to Dream Within a Dream, which hits for 3 times, but doesn't teleport you on top of the enemy anymore. Overall though, Ninja is still really cool. I know people find the Mudra system confusing, so I hope I explained it a bit better this time around. I think this job has a lot of identity to it, so I hope it doesn't change in 8.0. But yeah, that basically sums up Ninja, so bye!